All right, guys, got the short block all taped up. It is ready for paint. So ended up using duct tape for it, which I really don't necessarily like duct tape, but I tried to use some of my blue masking tape, and I guess from maybe the WD-40 and the oils or whatever that was on some of the taping surfaces. I tried to wipe them down with some brake clean, but I don't know, my masking tape might just be cheap. It just didn't really want to stick too well, so I was like, well, I'm not gonna chance it. And so anyway, it's on there, getting ready to, you know, wipe down a couple of surfaces here with some brake clean and shoot it with some paint. So I figured I'd show you guys the little pre-tape setup here. And basically I've chose to use the Duplicolor engine paint, and it is the cast aluminum color, because ideally when I got this block back from the machine shop, I actually wasn't even going to paint it at all if the block came out clean, because I like the look of like the factory aluminum blocks, but it looks crappy, you know. Like I told you guys before, the machine shop guy said that you know, he kind of thinks that it was like a fire or something, because it's kind of baked on there. So and it could be, you know, again, I don't know where this engine came from originally. I just know it came out of an Escalade. So unless they're susceptible to fires, you know, I don't know what happened. So anyway, not a big deal. I'll shoot this thing with some paint. This ain't no, you know, this is a budget build, so I'm not really concerned with this thing being like some sort of professional show looking engine, like a, you know, billet aluminum block or something when you open the hood or something crazy. But anyway, that's that. Ended up placing an order this morning with BTR, Brian Tool Racing. Got rest of all the other stuff that I needed to get this thing buttoned up, with the exception of the intake and valve covers and oil pan. So this thing will be pretty much a buttoned up long block, and that's that. So got the cam, timing chain, rocker arms, lifters, gaskets, all that stuff. It's all coming, it's on the way. So I'm gonna get the short block together, at least here over the next couple days, over the, you know, should be for just a few seconds or minutes for you guys on the video, but pretty straightforward. I figured I'd show you guys that, and I'll try to catch as much of this this process as I can. All right, I got the first coat on it here. Looking pretty nice. I like that cast aluminum. Looks good. Looks a lot better than that old crusty looking, you know, burnt, dirty looking color aluminum that it was. So it's kind of bright. I don't really know how the camera's gonna pick up there for you, but I mean, it's nice. I'm doing that side there in the sun, then I flip it around to this side here. So that's the paint. All right, so I've got the short block pulled into the garage, got all the tape off of it, and I am getting ready to file fit the rings. So I figured I'd take you guys along for the ride, show you a little process of what I got. Got it all ready. Just throw some oil on there each time I do the ring or whatever, but little makeshift setup here. Everybody else is a little different when they come to do things, but just driver side 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, top ring, second ring, and then the oil ring. So I'll file it, stick it down, come in, grab the second one, file it, and then I'll do that, and then I'll load it up with the appropriate oil rings, and then I'll just keep going down all the way individually, you know, match pistons up with each cylinder. Once I get all that done, then I'll do the connecting rods and get this thing together. Go slow. I mean, this is, you know, I was building an engine before, they know this is the most painstakingly slow setup. You know, I've got a piston set up here with a second ring on it, so I'll get it down in the bore and I'll square it up with the top side of the piston there, center the ring up, come back, grab the feeler gauges, and go with it. Check my gaps. I believe I'm gonna go a little bit big on the gaps on this one, since it's gonna see some boost. I'm gonna go probably like 30 on the top ring and like a 28 or so on the second one. But everyone's different when it comes to their preferences as far as ring gap. So that's that, guys. It's pretty simple. I'll get going here, try to get the camera set up, and I'll show you guys some install of the rings and the pistons. So, all right, guys, so I thought I'd show you something interesting. I went through and put a top ring in every hole, okay, and right off the bat, like, you can see, at least maybe not on camera, but like that gap there, that's a little tighter. Same thing here. And so that's what I did, right? I can put a 30 here, 30 in the second hole. I can only fit like a 28 in the third hole and like a 28 in the fourth hole. So that just goes to show you the inconsistencies in human development and things, right? Like a human built the block, a human did the boring, and a human built these rings, right? All manufactured. So you can just see the inconsistencies, whether it be in the thickness of the ring, overall diameter of the ring when they completed the manufacturing, or, you know, this hole might be just ever so slightly tighter than this hole, right, on the machine shop, which, I mean, if I had to guess, that's the way I would look at it. So what I'm trying to get at is that I wanted to try to see if I can move a ring, you know, back and blah, 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 and just try to see if maybe like this ring would fit better over here in this hole and vice versa and whatever. So, but I'm getting pretty much the same thing, 30, 30, 28, 28. So I'm going to take these two rings out, open them up just a little bit to put these back at 30 as well, and have all these four at 30, and then move on to the second ring and such. So, but I figured I'd show you guys the differences in that. All right, everybody. So I figured I'd bring you in on me setting up the rod on the piston. So as you can see, I've already got 3 of them done. The rest of them are getting ready to be done, and I've got this one set up here to show you. So I've got the block spun around. I haven't put the bearings in it yet. I'll get to that once I get all the pistons and stuff built. But I thought I'd take you along for the ride on this one and show you guys exactly what I was doing here. And for starters, I am taking on the passenger side and putting all the Gen 4 dimples to the rear of the main, just like on a factory engine. And then on the driver's side, I'll orientate the rod to where the dimple's facing to the rear as well. So these are on center rods from GM, just, you know, Gen 4 rods, but they're on center, so you don't necessarily have to have them one way or another. So anyway, I'll start out by taking and putting one of the circlips inside the piston itself, and then you got the pin, and then you got the other clips, correct? So what I do is I take a little bit of oil, run it inside the boss here on the connecting rod, get the bushing all lubed up. Same thing here for the pin. I'll get just got some old Royal Purple oil, just some I think it's 5W40, I don't know, it doesn't matter, it's just some oil. Basically put anything on it as long as it's not used oil. So all right, so you get it there, and then like I said, you're orientating the rod to where when the piston's sitting out of the hole, you're staring at it like this. All right, you're not like this, you know, so you're like this. And then, like I said, we're on the passenger side, so the rear of the engine is going to be to the left. So I'm taking that dimple and I'm orientating the rod like that, so it's going to go like this. Okay, so put it in like this, flip it over. There's the one circlip I have installed, so I'll spin it around so you guys can see. All right, and then just gently take your pin, and you're just slowly manipulating the pin in place through the bottom of the piston and in all the way through the other side gently until it hits the other clip. Right, pretty simple. And then transition the rod and piston combo over on its side. And this is kind of hard to show you on camera, but you're basically going to take and move one end of the clip down into the groove, And once you get it there, you're gonna just transition it all the way around, kind of almost like you transition the ring onto the piston. I'll just take a screwdriver just so it helps me grab this. I'll just take and push the pin in place real gently, making sure you're not scratching anything, and then boom. And then you just kind of look real close and verify you're in place. I don't know if you guys will be able to see that, but you can see the pin down in there. Alrighty, there's the crank. Got all the bearings in. About to lube it up, drop her in place. Alright guys, I'm going to use this Permatex Ultra Slick. This is going to be the stuff that I'm going to use on all the bearings. Actually, I don't even know if I've got it open, believe it or not. Brand new bottle. Alright, take two. Load this bad boy up with some nice and heavy. Definitely some sticky stuff, if you guys have ever used this. It's good stuff though. I'll go a little heavy on it. I don't really care about the amount. All right, do a little even spread here. Okay. Well, maybe. There she lays. So the only concern I've got right now at this point is really we just don't really want a lot of this going down in the holes, right? Because then you take the potential of filling the cavity where your main stud's about to go, right? You don't really want any type of liquid down in that, because then you could potentially like crack the block if you go to put a stud in place. So that's it, guys. Here's the crank, LSA. This is where the machine shop ended up taking some cuts out of it to balance it. But he said it balanced like a, I don't know, just perfect. So that's that. All right, folks, there you have it. It is in and torqued. And man, is she smooth. I mean, smooth as glass. So, real simple. You know, if you guys end up ever studding something, as far as LS is concerned, for sure. But, you know, you line hole it with the studs. So you give the studs and stuff to the machine shop. They're going to do that for you. And after that, all you do is just as simple as following ARP's stud chart. It's pretty simple. There's really nothing to it. You know, just 1, 2, and so on and on and on. You just keep changing the torque, your torque wrench. Jeez, almost drew a blank there. And then you know, you go balance back and forth. Make sure you use the Molly lube they give you. It's important. And don't forget, but I almost actually forgot this little section right here, it says use RTV sealant under the M8 side bolts. So I had put Molly on all these and ran them down finger tight, and I was getting ready to go through their first torque sequence, which I ended up bringing them to 10 foot-pounds. I forgot to put RTV under them, so I had to pull them all back out, put RTV under the heads and screw them back in, and then proceed with my torquing. But just so you guys, if you're sticking one together, don't forget to do that. And then when you're all done with the torquing, you know, make sure you take your rubber mallet, hit it to the rear, and then once to the front. That way you set the thrust, and that's it. I mean, you guys see it. And I'm turning it by hand right here, just smooth as glass. It doesn't, I don't even feel like the slightest grinding, which, I mean, hey, this right here is how every engine that you put together should feel, right? I mean, if you ever put one together and it feels like it's binding, or you hear some sort of grinding noise or any of that sort, stop where you're at, do not proceed, and take it back apart, because I'm gonna tell you right now, all you're doing is wasting your time. You will end up finding the problem, and it's more than likely gonna be upon startup. If it's bad enough, you'll smoke it as soon as you start it, or it won't be, but just, you know, shortly down the road. So just make sure you're paying attention to that. You know, that's really it. I'm no professional engine builder. You know, I'm a diesel tech in the military, so I mean, I turn wrenches quite often, and rebuilding engines is second nature almost to me. However, no matter how skilled you are throughout anything in life, just remember to always follow the manufacturer's tech and suggested torques, procedures, and such. Don't ever wing anything. If you wing something, you're literally just going to go out on a limb and just hope it works. So don't ever do that, especially when it comes to building engines. And then on top of that, especially when you're trying to build one that's going to make a decent amount of power like this one. I mean, I'm really going to try and hope this thing makes, I mean, if it makes 1,500, I'm going to be extremely happy. I mean, anything over 1,000, obviously I'm going to be happy. And I want to try to find that happy sweet spot where it doesn't destroy itself after one season. So really, guys, that's it. I'm gonna cut you off on the video just for tonight. You'll continue on with the video, obviously, but you know, here in a few seconds, you guys just continue to see me on the next day. I'm gonna be getting the rods and pistons in it, and that's it. This thing will be together as far as a short block's concerned. Well, I'd say a good 90% of the way. Obviously, I still got to put the cam in it, you know, time and chain, oil pump, all that stuff. That stuff's coming. Jam the lifters in it, and then I can get the heads and stuff on it and all the rest of the goodies. So, nonetheless, there it is. That's where she's going to sleep for tonight. Obviously, as you can see, starting to put the rings and such onto pistons. I've got one in the hole already. Lining the second one up, getting ready to do it as well. So, pretty straightforward if anyone's ever built an engine. You just make sure that you get your rings clocked correctly. And what I'm doing, and before people freak out and see that I'm wiping stuff down with like paper towels, and you're like, oh, it's supposed to be lint-free rags and all that. Well, yes, you're right, it is supposed to be, but I'm taking like extreme care to make sure I'm doing like minimum wiping with as I can, and going back over and making sure there's like no lint and stuff on them. So, you know, just taking extreme care. So what I'm doing is just going through, just taking some just generic, you know, brake clean, and wiping down the surfaces of the caps, top and bottoms of the bearings, so that way everything's nice and dry and clean. Put the bearing into the cap. Same thing on here, rod side, and then you know, lubing it up with the same lube, the Ultra Slick here. So I'm still putting the Molly even on the stock rod bolts. So a lot of people, you know, if you're building an engine and you want your torque specs to be as accurate as possible, you always want to use some sort of Molly lube. But anyway, it's pretty straightforward, guys. I mean, you know, your oil control rings, stick them on. This one's already pretty much lined up. So I'm doing top ring, you can see at 12 o'clock. The second ring's at 6, which I'll orientate them a little bit better. But And then the oil control rings here, you separate them a little bit. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but I mean, that's it. And then I'll take some ATF, run around the piston the best I can on the rings, coat the inside of the compressor, the ring compressor tool here, and then just slowly come over and drop it in the hole. And that's it. So, and then I'll just keep kicking along with all of that. So I just wanted to point out something again. I've got the driver's bank done. All 4 of them are in there. And then I've got this this other one set up. So what I was going to show, I'm using BTRs. That thing's nice. So you can see this journal's down here at the bottom dead center, right? This one's up a little bit, this one's close to the bottom. So what I was going to say is that when you switch to the other bank, whichever bank you start with, you can minimize your rotations that you have to turn the crank by just starting with the cylinder that's at the bottom, right? And so that's why I'm like not starting with this cylinder and working my way back like I did the other side. But what I wanted to show is just this little process. What I'm gonna do is I like to hold the ring compressor still. It's got a little bitty lip that sits just inside the chamfer area of the cylinder, and you hold that, lightly tapping this, right? People talk about, oh, make sure the connecting rod is not gonna nick the crank. Like, yes, you're right, you need to be paying attention to that. But as the crank or the rod comes down and it's near the end of the crank, I mean, the piston almost has to be at bottom dead center in the cylinder for that rod to be anywhere really close to the crank. So what I like to do is I like to maintain positive control of the ring compressor. That way this thing doesn't move and you take the opportunity of presenting a ring separating out of the compressor to the lip of the block. So I'll try to set the camera up here for you and just show you what I'm talking about. Try to walk my way through this. That way you guys can maybe get an understanding of how exactly I'm doing it. And it's pretty straightforward, but I want to at least put this in the video for you guys. All right, so I'm pretty much ready to drop it in place, all right, like I just told you. So what I do, I come down, take a look, make sure it's still gonna be lined up good. You know, it's not twisted in a bore or anything. It's good to go. A lot of these cylinders, what I found over the years is that you really have to make sure you pay attention to the counterweights, right? So as the rod is coming into the cylinder, even in this position, you have to ensure that the rod is not going to hit the counterweight on the crank. And so what happens, what I mean by that is when the piston is right now inside this type of ring compressor, the piston can actually be like slightly cockeyed, right? And what happens is when it is like that, well, the bottom of the rod, when it's sticking down through the cylinder, can be turned ever so slightly. And so if you're not under here paying attention to that, you could be trying to hammer down on this, getting ready to set it in the cylinder, and then that rod is making contact with the counterbalance on the crank. So you just want to make sure you're mindful of that. So, like I said, I know this thing's lined up, right? Got it pretty much where I want it. It's just so happens this cylinder doesn't have a counterweight near it. Boom, I'm ready to go, right? So what I do, just hold it here, nice and firm against the block, so that way it doesn't move on you, and then just ever so slightly make your adjustments. Then, once I see that the cylinder or the piston is down into the cylinder of the block, you can then remove the tool, right? And so I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see this on camera. I'll try to show it. Yeah, you can kind of see it. So the bottom of this ring compressor tool here has a lip, and that's the lip that I was talking about that sits down inside the cylinder. Okay, and what it does is it allows this pretty much to sit right where it needs to and have a seamless transition for the rings to pass right by this into the cylinder. So these are a lot better than your old traditional style, like clamp style, or you tighten like a hose clamp. that shit's for the birds. That's old like 50s technology. That's garbage. The only downside that I will say to these type of ring compressors is that they are specific to the bore, right? So you could have like a whole bunch of them lined up on a wall if you're like a machine shop or you're a guy that builds engines all the time. That's the only unfortunate part about these is like forever and always this will only work on a 4075 piston, right? So you wouldn't be able to use this on anything else. But they're cheap, right? I mean, I think I paid like, I don't even remember, like $20 or $30 for this thing, right? So it's a peace of mind to know that when I'm putting pistons down in the cylinders, that they're going to be in there correctly and they're not going to catch the lip on any of the rings. So I like these. These are tremendous. They're tapered. That's how you're able to, like, as you're coming down over the, setting it up, or I'm sorry, you're coming in from the top, you're setting it up, your rings, you just do it by hand like this and you set them down in. And once you have it, then you have the whole assembly like this with the piston and the rod hanging down, and then you come over, you line it up, and then straight down to the bore, and you let it just sit there like that, like I showed you. Pretty straightforward. I think that was it as far as that. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna proceed with trying to get this thing down inside the cylinder further and on the crank, and I'll show you that. So you got it lined up, it's in the bore, right? So you come up, same type of movements. You don't want to get down here and just send it, because the resistance of the rings has got the piston to where it's not gonna come and slide all the way down. However, you don't want to take that chance of it going down and nicking the crank. So this is where everybody talks about pay attention to the end of the connecting rod and it doesn't hit the crank. Well, this is why. So basically what I do is I come down, put my finger in the bolt hole of the rod, and then as it's coming down, I'm just slowly guiding it. Taking care that nothing is twisted, right? So at this point, you could have the piston inside the bore spun ever so slightly, and what happens is it takes that rod and it will twist it like that. And so if it's not completely straight, it won't go down on the crank journal, and it'll be twisted like this. So as you get ready to come down, it'll either hit the crank or to hit the other rod that you've got in place. And so you just have to be mindful of that. So if it doesn't feel right to you, just stop. That little bit of movement there is the bearing right near the crank. And then once you get it lined up to where you know the shell of the bearing is around the journal of the crank, and you're not going to take any jeopardize of any, like if this was the crank and the bearing's coming down, you're not like right here, you're over the journal. So you already know you're past the crank journal, and now you can go ahead and hit it all the way down to where it's seated completely. And that's what I do, right? Give it a couple good hits, you can hear the tone change, boom, you're on the crank. That's a done deal. Then move forward with proceeding on getting the connecting rod cap put on. So like I said, I take a little bit of moly, I'll turn this thing down sideways, run some moly on the threads, and then I'll take and put some of my Ultra Slick on the bearing, wipe it on, come over here, make sure you orientate the bearing cap right, because these are cracked rods, right? They only can go on one way, right? And then once you get them on, you just finger tighten them, put them on, and then once I get all 8 of them in, I'll just take and flip the block over, torque them all. All right, everybody, so here you go. The short block is together. Before you trip out, the head is actually just sitting on there. They're not bolted down. There's no, the head gaskets are still in the package, but I've got the head sitting there just so I don't necessarily have to come over here and cover this up. You know, I'm actually going to put the other head on as well, and that's going to be its final resting place until a few more days, until the rest of my parts show up, which will be the, again, lifters, rocker arms, push rods, cam, timing chain set, pretty much everything like that I need. Full gasket set for the whole deal. Front timing cover. I've got the oil pump already. I've got the rear cover. The only thing I'm pretty much lacking is the oil pan, which I'll get a hold of, and valve covers, and the front harmonic balancer. So figured I'd show you guys in closing. It's all together, it's all torqued, everything's cleaned up for the most part, and it is ready to, I mean, continue on, right? I mean, I just got to get it built, but I mean, it's almost there, right? So short block's done. The rest of it will go together pretty quick. I'll get it together and it'll be ready to put in place, you know? So I'll try to get, I mean, you see the cage sitting right behind it, so that's probably going to be the next video, is getting the cage stuff set up, but I wanted to show you guys in closing the short block is complete. So you guys seen how easy it was. I mean, there's thousands of whatever, like YouTube videos of people building LS short blocks, and I mean, this is one right here that's, I mean, it's gonna see over 1,000 horsepower all day. So you guys see it right here firsthand. That's pretty much it. I'll set the camera up here and you guys can see the head go on, which is, I mean, it's nothing special. It's just trying to seal everything up as best I can. I mean, it's inside the garage, so luckily it's not out in the weather or anything, or outside like under a pole barn, or how some people build engines. I don't really know, but it's not a perfect seal. But I did put ATF all down inside all the cylinders, and it should be good to go. I mean, all the assembly lube is still on the bottom end. You see it dripping there pretty good. So it'll definitely stay sealed up and be good for the next few days until the rest of the parts come up for me to seal it all together completely. And don't trip about these valve springs. You know, if anybody knows LS valve springs, you know, like especially these GMPP heads, like you ain't following no kind of crazy numbers with them valve springs. These are, I think, like 550 max lift on these. So needless to say, when I ordered the BTR cam kit, I'm going to be using their springs, so it's like a 660 lift spring. So anyway, that's that, guys. I'm going to close the video off. I'll get all this thing buttoned up, and you guys will see it all together when it's completely like ready to drop inside the car. But that's it. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Remember to hit that subscribe button and like the video for me, please. Drop any comments below. I read them all, and let me know what you guys think. If you guys got any suggestions for the channel, and be looking out for the next video. Thanks.